talking about the first episode of Monday Night Raw right here on the Golden Era podcast with Sean Mooney. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and this is one of my favorite subjects as we look back. It's so funny you mentioned that. I know that you were going to come out with a slogan, but I still to this day can't figure out uncooked. I mean, I get uncut.
Raw, right? Raw?
Okay. I get
Put
it.
little food jokes in there?
Yeah, I always kind of thought like, okay. All right, I get the raw food, okay, but no.
Uncut.
No.
Which, again, if you want to explain uncut, what is uncut?
I would have thought like Unreal. I don't know. I would have come up with
uncensored. I understand 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
But the rest, you're right. I think it was just someone came up with uncensored and was like, we need two more words with "un" in the front.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I could see that in the meeting, and somebody goes, well, throwing stuff out there like, how about uncooked? And everybody's like, and then Vince's like, I love it. Okay, yes, love it. Okay. We do too. We do too, Vince. Yeah, we do too. Absolutely. Yes. Great idea.
The whiteboard on the back.
Like,
all right, what are we gonna do here? Undertaker. No, we can't do that. Yes, the first episode of Raw. It's going to be an interesting topic today because for you, I imagine you were freezing outside, but we'll get into all that in a minute. This is the beginning of the flagship show they would talk about. It's on Netflix now, and imagine that, but it started on the USA Network, but the reasoning is primetime wrestling wasn't doing the numbers it once was. And what do you think about that? Because primetime wrestling has different feels. It has the Bobby Heenan Gorilla Monsoon jokes, then tossing to a match. You have this weird setup where they're in an office situation. It's like a table where they're talking about subjects. It's all over the place. You were part of some of the different versions too, but for you, what does primetime wrestling mean to you, and why was it the right time to end it?
It was time. But if you think about the history of primetime, there was a pretty rich as far as the evolution of it. That it actually began with, Jesse was one of the hosts that when that all started. And then when he started to have some issues with Vince and the company, they were thinking, okay, what are we going to do now? And, Gorilla had emerged as a very strong presence. The fans loved him and, had reached a different level. And then when they paired him up with Bobby, that's when the magic began. And we have discussed that several times.
Yes.
Nobody saw it coming. I mean, it's like anything else, they're great personalities, whatever tools they bring in that toolbox. But if you can't make it work, if you can't, build something together, even with all those tools, it doesn't last. Well, primetime was Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. I mean, let's be completely honest here. That show really was nothing. There wasn't a whole lot to that other than two guys sitting at a desk giving each other shit, really. And it was just an opportunity to not have the crowd noise or them having to talk about matches when they're really in between the stuff that was going on, and they could just riff. And that's what it was. I mean, it was just a riff fest for those two. The producers would give them a premise and coming out of things, and they would just go. So, I mean, think about the matches weren't really tremendous. They were the the dark matches, I guess you'd call them, in a sense, unless we were really pushing something. So that's what that show was, and it was a long format. It wasn't this short half hour that people were used to with Superstars and Challenge. And so that whole show, really, it was Gorilla and Bobby. That was pretty much what made it work for a very long time, was very successful for USA Network. And when it started to wane, when we started doing the other stuff, with Bobby having his own show, which is another, example there of when you have a comedy team. Remember in the old days, they had the straight guy and then they had the comedian. There was many, comedy teams that were very successful, Martin and Lewis and the whole thing. And Bobby and Gorilla, that's what they were. And when they got this idea to let Bobby have his own show, it really showed that was not how Bobby worked. That's not what the magic of Bobby was. And not to say he couldn't do it with other people. Thank God I was blessed once in a while. I got to be a straight man with him. But nobody did it better than Gorilla. Gorilla knew that dynamic was just so great that, Bobby would push it. Bobby would push it, think he could get away with stuff. Gorilla would let him go. And then it was smack. You stop. And it wasn't just, will you stop? It's under threat of violence. You're going to stop talking right now because I'm a very big man and I am very good at violence if it needs to be done. And so that whole dynamic and, as Ted DiBiase has described, chicken shit heel, nobody did it better than Bobby. And and for those, I know we've got a lot of smart folks out there, but, the chicken shit heel is the guy that talks and big bluster until somebody calls him on it. And then he can't cash that check. And that was Bobby. And Gorilla was the other side of that. So when they, tried to do the whole Bobby Heenan show and they put Jameson on there, who was a very good performer, but he had his character. It was kind of this offshoot of the Nutty Professor, the Jerry Lewis kind of character.
Oh, he's definitely Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. And but to put, and he was supposed to be Bobby's sidekick. Well, Bobby's not like that main guy. He's reactionary. Yes. I think is the best way to put it.
He's improv.
And they had the live audience come in, which was we had done with Primetime that I got to host with Bobby. But it just didn't work. And so as we talked here at the top that, it had just run its course. And then we tried other things, but you could tell Vince was thinking, we got to do something to shake it up, that's going to make it different, of a different product. And he wanted something that was going to take it away from the wrestling challenge, which was, that had become a very slick operation.
Yeah.
It was a promotional tool, and that's what it was. Both of those shows, all those shows, Spotlight, Wrestling Challenge.
Superstars,
Rarely would you see two superstars in the ring together. They were promotional tools, but the lighting was perfect, and and it was all, scripted to a point where you just one thing after another, and the guys would go in, squash match, promo, that's how it went. So Vince wanted to do something that was going to really shake it up and give folks some good matches, but also have this feel of, what's going to happen this week? And he wanted an intimate setting, but he didn't want to go back to the old studio feel. From the early days, the territories where you basically set a ring up in a television studio. You might get 50 seats or whatever in there, and you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
No matter what you do, you can't create this.
Well, because it's free. It's free tickets. They're like free. Oh, they just show up. They're not there because it's fun. They want
it, but it's just such a small crowd. It doesn't give you that feel of a big time event, right? Mm-hmm. So they had several different options they were thinking about of actually building a studio in Stamford. I remember that was, big. I thought that's what they were going to do, because we could still, we would do those when we were doing Primetime with a live audience. People would show up. We'd have maybe a couple hundred people we could fit in there, and you could kind of create that, but that idea. But I think when they started weighing it, like, it's just still going to have that, like warehouse feel to it. So then they started looking for, other places that were not too far away, but venues that we had been to a lot. I think Poughkeepsie and, places around.
Yeah.
And then, then they're thinking, what are you going to say? Live from Poughkeepsie. And I'm like, what? No, that's a big deal. So where else are you going to do it but New York City? We had done shows, Madison Square Garden every month forever. And, it's the marquee, live from New York City.
Yeah. Ooh.
I mean, my God. Wow. Right. but they had to figure out a place where you're going to do it. You can't do it at the Garden. There's a lot of venues in New York City. I think the Paramount was part of the deal, which was close to the Garden. But then they started thinking about what if there's competing events? Then you're going to have a mess down there, even if it was a Monday night or whatever. But you've got the Garden, and if you've been to New York City, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a hassle. And I guess that the same people that managed Madison Square Garden, that part, that whole, like a conglomerate, you have a management company that would book it and, set up crews and all, whatever needed to be done. They also had the Manhattan Center, which hadn't been used a whole lot. And if I remember correctly, it was not in the greatest shape in part of it. And I think the original thing, when they went over to look at it, and there was a ballroom or something on the ground floor, and it just wasn't that big enough, and it was in its shambles, and it just wasn't going to work. And like, I think somebody said, well, we've got this, big ballroom. It's upstairs, and it's like a couple of levels, and it might be big enough. And they went up there, and they're looking but it was 7 floors up, and the only way to get there was these big elevators, and they weren't freight elevators; they were people elevators, but they were huge. They were huge elevators, but still, you had to, think about it. When we do these shows, how much stuff you have.
Mm-hmm. A ring alone.
Yeah, you got to take that up in pieces, which they would anyway. But I mean, you're hauling this thing up there, and it's got to go off dollies or wherever, and get it up there. So I wasn't there, but I know that when they took the troupe there, that consisted of, I'm sure, Bruce and Pat and Vince and maybe Nelson Swegler, Basil DeVito to see the promotion part of it or whatever. They were thinking like, what in the world? I mean, how are we going to do this? And they went up and looked at this place, and they're like, wow, this could work. And I think Vince really liked it. And as we'll talk about, he wanted this massive excitement, this raw, event taking place, but intimate in a sense where, you've got a lot of people in this building, basically on top of the ring, experiencing it all. And if you can do that, you don't have to have 5,000 people in there. You just have to have enough people jammed to the rafters there, which it gave that impression because it was a great venue for, music or whatever like that, because the crowd, it's a very straight up, like vertical, right over the top of the next level, the balcony. So you really, you could just see it, and it was just big enough, like, to put the ring in there, and then you could put, seats all around the floor. And then you've got the balcony, so you could create this great illusion of, massive people. You can't wait to if you got a ticket to that, my God, it's top 10 of your life. Was kind of that feel to it that they wanted. And on top of it, I've heard Bruce talk about it because of the technical end, because I'm sure people that were that were part of that world are thinking, my God, how the hell are we going to do this? Well, turns out that they had a pretty much state-of-the-art control room.
Oh, wow, they did?
That they could connect to this thing. So instead of worrying about having to have a truck out in the street and
running wires down the
rolling
stairs,
that in every week, they could. So they're thinking they could save money there and convenience, because you imagine running cables 7 floors up,
grips,
which I think they had to do for some of this, because I remember there were some
lights
circumstances where they did. I remember they ran cable up, like flights.
I was gonna say flights of stairs.
Yes. But that's what sold it. And that became the venue for Monday Night Raw. And they wanted to do it all live. So I don't think that they could do that every week, because the place they had to get dates that were, book dates out. They also had to think about the logistics here. How do you get these guys in there? the boys, because they wanted to have this as a big profile with superstars. And I think at the time we were running probably an A, B, and a C tour out there. So if you're going to bring guys in, you've got to plot who's hot there, and then they got to be able to get them in. Well, if you get them to New York City, okay, it's going to happen, and it's much easier than trying to get them to Poughkeepsie. So but still, it was going to be a logistical nightmare to do it. But they pulled it off, and I vividly remember that first show. Us going in there, going, okay, now what? Now what happens? And
right.
As you know, they had a lot planned that night.
And then for you personally too, about this night, you're the first voice you hear on the first episode of Monday Night Raw, the shot of New York City, and it pans out and there you are. And clearly Raw has this whole different feeling, because I want to break down like just the atmosphere for the fans, but also you start the show off, but then we go to an opening. This is unlike any opening that has existed for WWF television, because before it'd just be highlights of wrestlers doing moves like, oh, body slam, oh, with weird music playing over the background. This, you don't really see the wrestlers. You see the moves, but they're in a different filter over them, unlike what we've seen before. And then the sirens going off. It's something so different. And like when you first saw that opening, you're thinking to yourself, like what is this? Like this is how MTV is producing their programming at the time. We were, at least the WWF before, was not operating underneath this guise of let's get the youth and the teenagers. We're going to get kids and family. I feel like Raw was for the teenagers and older adults.
Oh yeah. It was supposed to be edgy, really. And as Vince always used to say in every one of those meetings, nothing can go wrong. In a sense, I think he wanted to have, I don't want to say necessarily fall apart and go wrong, but he wanted that edgy non-perfection, that you didn't want that clean, this is raw, this is live, this is raw, this is happening. And it wasn't that we hadn't experienced that with the pay-per-views we did. I mean, of course, those were live shows, but he wanted that edginess, that rawness to it. And that the open was a classic part of it. I loved it. And I remember, like Brent Musburger would always do that. You're looking live at wherever the event was. And that's, I think, like one of my first lines was, you're looking live in New York City or and I was freezing my ass off that.
I was just going to, I wrote that down. How cold were you?
I'm so proud to be a part of that, because that open was so cool. That and the quick shots, and I love the seamless entrance into the arena.
Yeah,
right, because they planned it that way with the sirens and everything, and you kind of that last shot, like, and then it opens up and it's like wow, and the crowd, Howard's out there. He was the prep guy to get the folks and basically counted them down, and so. Yeah, right off the bat, you knew it was different. There was no question about it, and it was cool. And you really did get a sense that we're doing something different here, which I think was very difficult to really pull off, just because of the way we were at the time. That they wanted everything to be smooth, and suddenly you're going, no, let's let things hang a little bit. If you stumble, you keep going. That whole, it's raw, folks. It's like taking you back to the old territories where they're doing these interviews. But he didn't want that whole thing that we were used to of backstage interviews. That where we did everywhere.
The blue locker rooms.
Yes, Vince did not want that. He wanted the so the man on the street, out there. Roaming guy, and that was kind of the idea. I loved that stuff. I loved every time when they would send me out into the crowd to do interviews. I really loved that, but because I just think it brought people right into it. It just sucked you in, and you thought you're standing there or you're watching it and you're going, I could be right there with that crowd. And and seeing it all happen, and they might interview me. So
It's true.
I thought that was brilliant. I really did, and I loved doing those interviews. So no more than that the crazy guy that showed up that night that kept trying to get in.
There's probably a few of those besides Bobby Heenan. But though, before Raw even starts, is there a meeting where they're discussing, like, all right, we want youth. We got to get Mooney out there first because we have Gene Okerlund, we have Bobby Heenan, we have Gorilla Monsoon, Lord Alfred Hayes. There's a group of you who have been around for the Golden Era, but you're the youngest. And you're out there right in the beginning. Like, was there meetings about the conscious decisions of, all right, we got to get Mooney out there? Like, when are you told that, hey, man, you're going to be the kind of the anchor of this show? Like, we're going to keep going back to you outside, and you're going to keep hitting home new facts, improving with Bobby. Then we're going to go back to the ring.
Yeah. Well, I was never part of that creative process as far as them when they were developing something. Mm-hmm. I just found out when Bruce would come to me and say, "This is what we're doing with you."
Okay.
And I remember thinking that night, but I knew before the event. I didn't have just that day, but I mean, when they came to me with the idea of what they wanted to do, I was thinking, man, that's awesome. And the ideas they had with Bobby, and they didn't really have that sewn up, or maybe they just didn't want to tell me because they wanted me to react when he would show up. But I didn't really know what he was going to be doing or what he was going to be wearing. I just knew that he was going to come out 3 or 4 times, and I was supposed to get in the way and cut and unmask him, so to speak. So and then as far as the choice of youth or me being out there, I think that decision came from as we've talked about that Vince wanted me to be the credible newsman. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he wanted. He was going for. He wanted, the guy on the street there, who, out there to talk to people, get the scoop, find out what's going on behind the scenes out there. And I wish we would have done a lot more of that. But I really think it was effective because it was different. It wasn't the usual. Well, let's go backstage. Sean Mooney's with whoever. Right. It was let's go down and see what's happening. Shawn, what's going on out on the street? I loved it. I thought it was great, and nobody better to start with than Bobby Heenan. And as I said, being a straight man for him, any chance I had, I leapt. I'm like, let me at it. Please let me do it. So it was great, and I loved being that because Gene and Bobby were good together, but they were both kind of the same way in a sense that they had that sarcastic kind of delivery and everything. I was kind of the mark in a sense that Bobby could, and I'd be kind of like, what? Wait a minute, what are you talking about? So I was, whatever the choice, whatever the reasoning was behind it, I'm really glad that that's what they decided to do.
Of course. And again, you start off, your voice is there, but then Bobby's trying to get in, and all night long, Bobby Heenan dressed in different outfits. He is Rob Bartlett's uncle. He's a woman. He's, the rabbi, and it's just hilarious to see all these things. But you're telling me that you didn't. So there's a camera in front of you. Where's Bobby during this? Is he just showing up and you don't see him coming and he just pops into camera, or you do see him as the rabbi and then he's on camera?
No, I think that was there was a purpose behind that, because he would go off and the people that were the makeup people and the costuming people would put that stuff together with the aunt and him coming up. The uncle and that whole thing. So, and I think they wanted that, have him come through the crowd, and I would be like, oh boy, like here we go, for that reaction. And I think that worked really well, because me when reacting to what he was doing was genuine as far as Bobby, what the the one with when he was playing the Hasid. Like the rabbi kind of character. And I remember he had that beard on and it kept like getting caught in his mouth. And that was hilarious. You see that there's points there where I have to look away because I'm breaking up. He's broke me. But then when I, pull the beard, I'm like, Bobby Heenan, how dare you? So,
what? I have to get in. I have to get in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to mention, because you talk about that I was the first voice that anyone heard on Raw. And it's funny because I didn't even put that together, that I was kind of this trivia question until they called me and wanted me to come out for the anniversary for Raw. And they told me, because, you're the first voice. And I was like, man, I never even thought about that. But, it's pretty awesome to think about, because at the time, I had no idea how long this show is going to last. We did other things. I didn't, not to say I didn't think it was a great idea, or it was, but we move on. We might do something for a year or something, and then things would change. It's incredible to think what it grew into and what it continues to be, from that idea that Vince had to mix it up, do something different. And it's lasted and lasted and lasted. It's just amazing.
I know.
I think it's like a record for most consecutive,
episodic television.
Episodic television. Yeah. And think about that in television, all of television.
Just amazing. Yeah. And especially in today's world where television is just.
So the fact that I was, this much a part of it, but it's still something that I'm really, really proud of.
It's, again, as soon as I put it on, I watched it. It was a good 45 minutes of watching it. No commercials on Netflix now. And I watched it and I was like, wow, he's the first voice, because I haven't watched it in so long. So I just sat down. I was like, damn, Mooney's the first voice.
And I didn't tell you, Steve, my son, for Christmas, I should have brought it in here, but he gave me a poster of that scene. And you've probably seen the picture of Bobby dressed up as the over-the-top aunt.
Oh yes.
And he's the reaction, and the two of us, and that's one of the greatest Christmas presents. It's going to go up in the new studio.
We can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
can't see it here on prime time.
It's awesome. I love when that picture turns up, or somebody sends it to me or asks me about it. It's great.
Yeah, he's the aunt of Rob Bartlett. He is the uncle of Rob Bartlett. Let's talk about Rob Bartlett then, because this is a voice that was added to the WWF. There was no indication of who this man was. Just out of nowhere, after they tossed to after the opening plays, we go to ringside. There's Macho Man, there's Vince McMahon, and then they bring up Rob Bartlett.
Who's this?
Now, to me, he does his job, what he's asked to do. But what did you think about adding a brand new voice to a brand new show without your audience even knowing who this person was?
Yeah, well, if you were in the New York area, you knew him very well. He was on the radio, part of the Don Imus team, and hilarious. Rob Bartlett was a great comedian, is a great comedian, and Vince, as we talked about, Todd Pettengill was another guy on the radio. Vince listened to the radio and brought Todd in because of that. Mm-hmm. And he loved Rob Bartlett, and he had this idea, because he was always bringing people in from the outside world. It was his way to combine the worlds together, mm-hmm. and for that all sports entertainment could work. Unfortunately, you do have to have you have to be smart to the business. You have to know the business. You have to know what's going on.
What you're talking about.
Yes, especially if you understand the fans, the greatest fans in the world. I have covered every professional sport you could imagine, and hands down, and I have never wavered on this. The greatest fans in the world, greatest sports fans in the world are wrestling fans. They are the most loyal. They are the most honest. They tell you like it is, and they can be, oh my God, brutal. But that's what comes with honesty. And so I'm surprised that Vince didn't understand that more. I was fortunate that I was eased in. I wasn't in a position where I was supposed to comment necessarily on
an hour.
Yeah, but not even that. But I was there to promote.
Yes,
that was my job. But if you're put in a commentary situation, you got to know your stuff. And I think that Vince approached it wrong because he thought this will be a fresh look from somebody who's not from this world. So he's going to have this take on, wow, look at, I'm just taking it in and I'm bringing it to you, this outsider. Yeah. In a position like that, you can't do that. You've got to be an expert and have some knowledge. And so I think that right off the bat, and I don't know how used to live television or even being on television Rob was. He was a stand-up performer, so it wasn't like he wasn't comfortable being in front of crowds. But television is a different world. You are talking to this camera it's a black hole, and you've got to, your reaction is seen more. You got to be aware of where the cameras are. You got to know where to look. It's there's a lot going on, and this experiment initially, as it was, that was tough. Then you got Randy Savage, who I think Rab really liked Rob, and I think he helped him as much as he could. But at the same time, he's got to call you on when you say something really ridiculous. So that was tough. And then, thank God. I mean, can you imagine if it was today with the internet, what it would have been like? But they eviscerated him. It was rough. I think he came out and the Yoko and Coco match, Yoko and Coco, and I think the first thing he said, and I remember I could hear it in my earpiece, was he said, "Oh, I always wondered what happened to Gary Coleman."
Yep.
Like, oh my God. Well, so great line, funny, whatever, but at the same time, like, wow. And I think Rob's thinking, he wants me to be edgy and he's not keeping the guardrails on me. I'm going to get away with whatever I can. Not really understanding what you can do there. And of course, it was maybe a little different world then that you could say shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely could.
Yeah.
Trust me, we've talked about some.
But my point being is that it's kind of like that thing where, yeah, that he's like that, but he's our guy. You're not from here, and you can't make fun of people if you're not really. You know how it is. It's like your brother or your best friend, and you give him crap all the time, but this other guy you don't know does it, and you're like, wait a minute, dude,
you can't say that.
Who the hell are you? Yeah. So anyway, I felt bad for Rob in that sense because he was, and this has happened more than once where, somebody's really, really talented, but you can't translate it into whatever that format is that they've been put in. And I think that was a case of that. So that didn't go tremendously well. And I think, I don't know exactly how long Rob stuck around, but I think at the one point it was kind of, yeah, we both kind of agreed this isn't working. It wasn't that they fired him and said you're out, or I just think it was kind of like, and I think he was uncomfortable. I think in some ways he was relieved a bit. I did a podcast with him.
Same.
Yeah. And just a wonderful guy. Oh my God, funny.
Yeah.
And me, I'm like old school comedy, so I love that stuff. And he could, he does all these imitations that he had. And like the one guy, he has a character called Salmonella. He's this Italian guy, like he does voices, he does accents, and really, he was on the Imus show. He was one of the most popular characters that they had. And if you remember back then, Don Imus was huge. He was as big as Howard Stern. They were partners at one point. But Don Imus, you still there? Did you lose? We lose?
I threw my cell phone. I blocked it with my hand. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Got it.
I know you're riveted at my story here. But,
I always am.
That's he was a great performer, great comedy, but sometimes it just doesn't cross over to different worlds like that, and that was one of those cases. I don't know if you want to, what else you want to say about Dom or Rob, but it just didn't fit. And if we're going to talk about this team, Randy was there grudgingly. Randy wanted to be in the ring, still doing stuff and being at the top of the card, and he's kind of put into this position where, Vince wants him to do play-by-play. And I thought Randy was very good at it, but I don't think he wanted to be there either. So, no. Yeah, it was an interesting announced team, and then Vince, of course, has to do it because there's nobody else that can do it,
right?
The way he wants it done. So maybe at some, maybe he had an idea of, I'll hand it off, which he would do at some, but he had to do it, and so there you had this team that was kind of thrown together, that hadn't worked together, and it's timing. Like 2-man booth is tough, 3-man booth is really tough because everybody's got to get their bits in, but you got to be careful because you don't want to step on guys. If you've ever been in that position, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And so you got to pick your spots, and it becomes this rhythm. The play-by-play guy calls the action. Then the Randy, for example, chimes in with something, and then Rob's going to come in and say his bit, and then it's back to Vince. But you've got to work that out. Well, I think they came up to Stamford a couple of times. They got Randy, who when he was around, get him in town. They brought Rob up, and we had the studio in Stamford, Hamilton, and they put him in a booth and they put matches up and had them work together.
Okay.
Well, you can't do it in a week, folks. It just doesn't happen that way. It's a time thing.
Like a band.
It's repetition. It's learning how this guy talks, how you have a guy where maybe he pauses a lot. There's a pause before he bangs, and comedic timing is that way, where you might say something and you're waiting, and the other guy's thinking, oh, he's done, so he comes in, and then you ruin his. It's just knowing each other, and to put that together and then try and make it all flow. You just can't do it overnight. Maybe at some point that would have gotten to that point with them. That Rob would have settled in. He of course would have learned a lot more about the personalities, but it just never really got that chance to develop that way.
Yeah. After watching, I watched years ago, I watched all the 93 Raws, and Rob Bartlett gets laid off after WrestleMania 9 or let go, or they just decide he's not going to be in the company any longer.
By mutual agreement.
Yeah. So there's a bit where he's fired on an episode of Raw where Rob Bartlett calls in on Raw. Vince answers it and he fires him on air. So haha to Rob. But the thing you said about Rob is he wasn't knowledgeable of what he was talking about. And that's very obvious when he first drops in Yokozuna's name. He doesn't call him Yokozuna. He calls him Yoko Zuma. And again, Yokozuna's brand new. He's only been here for a little while now, but maybe you should know the names of the people you're talking about. And then for one entire match, he does a Mike Tyson impression. And Vince plays along with it. He's like, oh, is that Mike? And he's just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The whole match. And I get it. Radio, completely different atmosphere. But when I'm watching something happen and I expect you to talk a certain way because your programming is designed this way, I don't want to hear a 10-minute impression of Mike Tyson doing commentary for wrestling. That's me. And as you said, he brought up that Gary Coleman joke, and there's other jokes throughout the night about these little things. And I get it. He's not the norm. So it does give Raw this certain feeling about it. But I didn't want to hear a Mike Tyson impression for the first.
Well, it's also, too, and when you're just hearing audio, basically, kind of like if you just turn that on and then you're going, is that Mike Tyson? And then it keeps going. If you want to do the bit, then okay, you got a bit. It's going to be a couple of minutes, whatever, and then Vince keeps reminding everybody that he's talking to Mike Tyson. But to go on and you're just okay, all right, got it, alrighty. So it's like
my son making fart jokes at me, like, oh, that was funny the first time.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna do another one. Oh, okay, we're gonna keep doing it. I'll keep smiling though.
And the comedy, excuse me, that's the way it works. I mean, that's the kind of writer that Rob was. I mean, I'm sure he had a list of jokes that he wanted to get in, that he wrote.
Yeah.
So when it's when you feel like, okay, I'm here for the matches, and then you start to catch on, like he's got to get this in, oh, here comes a joke that he wrote that he's going to put in. They wanted it to be like very spontaneous, which, Rob was good at. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, when you've got things that you've got working, it comes off that way sometimes. So I think that was part of it too, that it was kind of an act they felt was being performed. But I just think overall, it just wasn't the right format. It just wasn't his place.
They tried.
Could have changed, yeah, because like I said, I think he would have gotten smarter to the business, and he's like, he wouldn't have lasted in the business as long as he did if he wasn't adaptable and wasn't able to do that. But, wrestling fans are not that patient when it comes to that, especially with an outsider. And as you mentioned, you come out and you say Yoko Zuma, it's like the newscaster who
just moved to town and saying
and he says
the wrong way.
He's in Massachusetts, says, oh yeah, over in Worcester.
Yeah,
like
it's called
you didn't even take the time to find out it's Worcester. You know what I mean? And that's what I tell. I've told young people the place I work out west, and there's a lot of Hispanic names and I said they're not a ton of them, but you better know them. And it's not that hard, and you just have to know them. Like back east in Massachusetts, around Boston, wherever, they're just streets or there's towns and stuff. Sure, you can look at how it's spelled, and in another state it's pronounced a different way, but you better know how to say it here, because they will frickin' fry you, as I know personally, having worked in Boston.
Oh, they will. We will fry you. We will take you down to the docks and beat you down when we drop that tea in.
But it isn't so much that, what an idiot. How does it know that? It's that you didn't take the time to really find out about this, did you? So how much do I think you care about what I think? The
first thing we hear,
right?
Out of your voice is not saying it right.
Yeah, and it is. It's brutal. But, that should have been a big part. I told you when I first started with the WWF, I had them send me every single picture of the superstars, and I had there were 8x10s. It was I don't know, probably 50, 60 of them at the time, or whatever. And they were like flashcards to me. And I would write notes on the back of the pictures. I still have them in a box somewhere. I should do.
I was just going to say, I was just about to say, please tell me you didn't throw those away, because
I don't know. Maybe it's lost in the move somewhere, but
you'll find it.
Yeah. But I did all these notes and would just quiz myself. So if I even saw this guy, I kept thinking, if I see him backstage and I don't know about him, I have this conversation, I may have blown it for the rest of the time I'm there. He's always going to remember that and Steve, when you see somebody, you're like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, what's good? You been? Yeah. And then they're like, this asshole doesn't even know who I am.
Or know his name.
He doesn't even know my name, right? So, so that's part of the homework thing. But I don't think that Rob had a ton of time to prepare, and as I said, they tried to do some mock broadcasting together. It just wasn't enough time, and there was no way they were going to do it. Be able to do that, to create it.
They tried.
But overall, it was all. I think it was tremendously received. That first broadcast.
Oh, I think originality
got everybody's attention.
Yeah. Even the entrance ramp is a little different, but also during matches you have Raw girls, because sometimes in boxing, you have the numbers come up. What round we in? Well, Vince wanted to do the same thing here with beautiful models with the Raw girls, but there is no rounds in wrestling, so they have to have little puns on there, like "Let's get raw" or "Uncooked, uncensored."
I mean, talk about let's be real here. I mean, just completely sexist. That the only purpose to have those people in the ring was to show off hot women's bodies in bikinis, like way ahead of the band show. That's it. That's all it was. It was not to give a message necessarily, promos or whatever. It was to let you see this freaking hot woman stroll around the ring. And right, we didn't have rounds, so
gotta have something.
Yeah, the Raw girls.
Yeah, you know what's funny is it's just.
I just think back though. I just think like how, where were the feminists? Like I'm surprised that we didn't have people down in the street with the placards or back then, because that was it. That we asked somebody, why are they in there? So we can gawk and just drool over their bodies. Next question.
That's so funny. Like, do you have another question? Like, I'm confused what your question is.
You okay? Yeah.
They're not here for anything else.
Captain Obvious here? Really?
Nope. We'll let Morty Feldman in, the uncle of Bobby Heenan, but sorry. Reporters are not coming in here talking about these feminists. Yeah, it was very interesting because you're watching it and you're like, okay, I get what they're here for. But someone was just like, oh, what should we do during commercial breaks? Or what should we do between matches? Bring out women, and listen, I'm not ever going to use my glasses I wear in today's world and try to examine them at something happened in 93. Totally fine. You go to a mall now. I went to a mall recently. And guess what? You walk around, pictures of beautiful women and beautiful men on the walls and underwear and dresses. They're trying to sell things. Yeah. Same thing's happening here. They're selling Raw.
That's right. Tune in. I bet there are people tuned in just for the Raw girls. Just saying. Somebody did.
When you see the fans going wild, there's always this one fan that pops up, Vlad, the super fan. And my God, when I'm watching this Raw, I'm watching it, taking notes. Oh, there's Mooney outside freezing his ass off. Oh, this is happening. What? There's Vlad. Did you know him? Because they did a whole documentary about him, and you would watch all these old WrestleManias and Survivor Series and SummerSlams. That guy was there. And he was always there. And we all want to know the truth, and maybe you have the truth. Is he related to anybody in the WWF?
No, I just a super fan, if I recall. And it's funny because I remember that, and I wasn't at every TV taping or, but I remember it's like these people, you would just see him. It was like one of those, first of all, you just see, and I've seen that guy before. And then, and so after a while you're going, yeah, this guy is a serious fan. It was just from just being there. Didn't do anything else. But no, I think his only connection is that he just loved professional wrestling. I may be wrong on that, but and then he kind of became this cult figure as because you'd see him, and then they kind of caught on with the cameras, and they would get shots of him. Bob Collins, I'm sure, arranged for tickets, so he would be in a good spot when you had people like that. I've talked to Chris Chambers, and I've mentioned his name several times, and people who are in the know of the WWE know what an impact that he had with the WWE creative and all of it. And he was there. He came in when I was there, so he was there for all the golden era. He was there for and a big part of the Attitude era. And Steve, we're going to get him on, and I hope several times, but to talk about some of these, untold. You talk about untold stories. He's got a million of them of how all this stuff developed back then. So you'll be hearing that name again, Chris Chambers. But
the dog's happy about that too.
My dogs love him. They just think he's awesome. He is a very close friend of mine. But you mentioned, the super fan, and Chris was one of those people that realized early on that interaction was really important. And so the signs started to appear in a lot of places with professional sporting events. They didn't want people to bring the signs because it would block people, piss people off like that. But Chambers in the creative group there was like, no, man, this is good. As it would become much more important later. But you brought up the fans in that interaction, and that whole idea with the Manhattan Center was to have that crowd right over the ring. and having that connection. Like you could hear them, you could see the facial expressions. You know, at the arenas, you didn't really get to see that because the shots were much wider. Like this, you got people. Remember, I mean, how many times I'm sure you can envision in your head right now. You know them. You know, coming down with the remote camera. They love that stuff. You know, with the camera moving out there, and people just hanging over those railings. You know, and there was a purpose behind that, where they had it kind of closer in so that they were actually, you know, touching the guys, and you know, but that was there was a purpose behind that too, and like seeing these faces, and then week after week you would see, and that was another thing that people thought, you know, if I go down there and I get in, you know, I'm you know, my aunt and uncle May and George are going to see me on national television.
So here's a question, though. There's a scene where you're outside and they keep going to you randomly about Bobby, but at one point there are fans already there purchasing tickets for next week's Raw. And that's what you're saying. Is that actually what's happening? Because even Vince is like, buy the tickets now. He does it's a full screen. He tells you, buy the tickets now for next week. There are people there buying them while you're outside. Is that actually what's happening? Or is this
Well, it was also just, you know, New York City, and it wasn't late at night. So there was a lot, you know, there's always people on the street. But did we season those crowds a little bit? Yeah, I think we had people that were from the sales and promotions and everything, and they were going up and like they were purchasing. Because how would people really know to go down there? But
they're watching it on TV maybe, and they're like, "Holy shit, this is happening!"
Yeah,
right
but we did.
There.
We seasoned that a little bit. I know they had people that we, you know, because everybody from the office had come on down to see the show, and then they had them go out and buy the ticket office. But it was a spectacle, and we made it that way so that anybody, you know, like people just passing by. Well, you know, New York, anytime you see something you want to stop and watch, there's always a show on the street there somewhere. You know, somebody's doing something crazy, and we had the big bright lights out. We had the lights out, and that was like moths to the flame. So we made it. We created a spectacle. So if you see that, you know, there was a lot of people down there for some of those, and you know, that was definitely all to create that stir. That hey, there's something going on here, and I got to be a part of it. And it worked really well. Yeah.
There were speaking of, so you had Vlad the Superfan in the audience, which is great. But then you talk about signs. There's one sign which really hits me home. Is this like this is 1993? The Undertaker is wrestling, and someone has the computer printout from the Xerox machine. It's giant. It says "Rest in Peace," and I just saw this sign. Go, God, this is so 90s. Because they weren't making it. They're like, I can use a computer to make a sign with the computer paper, and it's not beautiful white paper. It is the Xerox giant strip of paper, and if you break it, it's ruined. So
it's perforated. Be careful.
Very careful. But you know, we're supposed to be live this whole time during Raw, but there's random cuts to pre-tape segments, and I don't know if that's a reasoning of people who are like, well, this isn't really live. Like it's live to tape, and then there's live segments. Because one point we go to Bobby Heenan. Now, Bobby Heenan's supposed to be outside trying to get in. But then we cut to a segment of Bobby Heenan, and he's in like a blue screen, like he's doing something. He's talking about Lex Luger coming to the WWF at the 1993 Royal Rumble.
A narcissist.
But he's supposed to be outside trying to get in, but we're also playing this tape. He can't say the word narcissist, which I think is the original word. So he says narcissist over and over and over again.
Can't get the T in there.
Why couldn't he get the T in there? And why are they showing you a Bobby Heenan segment that's pre-taped on an episode that's live that he's outside?
Well, I think that people are kind of forgiving. You couldn't figure out that, okay, this is a promo and probably was done like a commercial. You know, if they would have gone to the event center with me out front, that would have been like, wait a minute. But it was like a commercial, and they were putting over, and that was, you know, this. Let's not kid ourselves here. This show was not necessarily just supposed to be this, you know, standalone. We're just here to show you wrestling. It was another promotional tool. Of course. They just gave you a lot more. And so when you've got that time, you're going to use it to promote other upcoming events and whatever else we're pushing. So that was no exception. And then we knew Lex was coming. So let's build him. Let's, so that I think you're dialing down a little too deep on that I don't think people were thinking, what the hell? How could that be Bobby?
I'm shutting it off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it was, I think it was a commercial in a sense, and it was a promotion.
But
so
Bobby saying narcissist.
Well, everybody has their speech impediment. That was one of them. Yeah, people have words that you can't say. I always have trouble like developmental. It's weird. Like there's a word that you have that you're like, I don't know why, but my brain just doesn't. I mean, I'll do it. I see it in the news because yes, you read in the prompter, and I'll put in there like developmental. Like I'll break it down so that I'll get. If it's all one word, I'll like develop them. But it was just a word that Bobby couldn't get out, and I was thinking, well, how can he be his manager if he can't say his name?
Yes.
So or are they going to change his name so it's a word that he can say? But Vince had trouble saying it. You're like, look at some of the things that, I can't remember, like narcissist or so, I can't remember how he said it. It was kind of different. But it's funny. And Bobby being how he is, I remember the one promo where I don't know what it is. I don't know how you're supposed to say it, but I will tell you this. He's, how he would recover from it. Narcissists.
But just listening to it, why would they let him say that? Like they know he can't say it. They're obviously watching this tape after he did it.
And you could see like Bobby was like, oh man, of all the things, this is what they got to have me say. You could tell. It's just like, I know I'm going to have to try and get this out,
Narcissist.
But it's funny. It's just like one of those things that, you got your word, and that was Bobby's.
Yeah. Well, fun fact for you: the Intercontinental title is on the line on the first episode of Raw. So if you go to a trivia night, there you go. It's Shawn Michaels versus Max Moon, who's originally Conan, but now it's not. It's Paul Diamond.
Paul Diamond, yeah.
And though, if you watch this episode of Raw, there's a weird segment that I cannot find anywhere about. And Max Moon has fireworks on his arm. So he's shooting little flames in the sky in the small little arena. He shoots one off.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't go off. Then he puts his arm like down like this. And then it shoots off and it hits a cameraman in the arm. And the cameraman just goes down. It's like, oh.
It's like...
But the camera shot they use is overhead because clearly someone edited this original broadcast and is airing it later on Peacock.
Yeah.
Dude, did you know anything about, like, what is this about? Who actually knows why and how this happened?
It's never a good idea. I'm always leery of fireworks no matter where they are.
And then indoors.
But yeah, and when you're doing it indoors, and I know they have a science to it where you can do these things.
Mm-hmm.
But, to me, it's never a good idea. And that could have been awful. That could have been really bad. What if he hit him in the eye or something? Or could have caught fire.
On the
right?
Uncooked.
Yeah. Cooked now.
He's cooked. It's cooked, cut,
and especially in a place you're 7 floors up, How are you going to get people out of there? Like it could have been, yeah. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, right now. See, now it's coming into focus. But anytime, and back then, I mean, this was in the 90s. I'm sure the science has improved since then because you see these pyrotechnic shows inside arenas all the time. But back then, that was just, I think after that, it was kind of like, okay, let's not do that again. We got lucky.
It's just so strange. Like you can't find any stories. Like, when you go online and try to find out how did Max Moon, almost set a cameraman on fire. Like there's nothing out there. There's no information about this. It's just because he gets right up. You see it. The guy gets hit with the fireball. He's down, and he just kind of pops back up and keeps filming. Okay, so there's a camera angle somewhere in the vault of the WWE that has this cameraman shot back. And it just goes down and then just pops back up. So maybe the vault will put it up there. Maybe
I think that's what it was. He went down and thought, and he went, okay, I'm not on fire.
Holy shit.
Okay, I'll just keep working.
I'm alive.
Come on.
Let's keep
I can still see both eyes.
There's
I'm not on fire.
Still, that piece of shit.
I guess I got to go back to work.
Yep. You can't just go back home. Yeah. There's no like
cameraman. That's a dangerous job. Yeah. See those poor guys in the basketball down at the guy that gets the floor assignment every once in a while. One of those
creamed
300-pound, 7-foot basketball players goes flying down and hits him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
not that's the best
idea. A lot of credit to those guys.
And then for a long time, people would always bring up how Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker are the only two wrestlers on this episode of Raw that are still technically within the company. Shawn Michaels running NXT, Undertaker having a podcast, but also now part of creative for AAA Lucha Libre. So it's very interesting to see who from this date, January 11th, 93, is actually still either active in the company or working with the company. No one's actually active any longer. Some are a little longer here on Earth. So is it surprising that Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, out of this episode of Raw, the first one, are still within the company training the some stars of tomorrow in currently AAA?
Well, not as surprised for The Undertaker. Because, I mean, he was young then. I mean, who knew? But you could see his work ethic right away, and he never really wavered. Mark always had that, understood the business, where he was going, what he wanted to do, appreciated the opportunities that he had been given along the way. I mean, everywhere, every step he went, he became the basically the captain of the locker room. So his trajectory was as long as he wanted it, in a sense, and that character was just so strong and never wavered. Shawn's now that's the one. That's like you go, wow, and he's become this legend, and how he helps young professional wrestlers, and his commitment to the Lord, and all these things, and where he is now. It's an incredible journey. I don't even say full circle, but really, from considering where the heights he climbed, where he get to a point where he had to leave, injuries that he wasn't supposed to really recover from, comes back, and then has this new career, in a sense, and has the greatest period of his professional life with the WWE. And now, as part of the creative and what they do, incredible. But back then, I would have no, man. As I've said before, I thought that, I thought Marty was the one who had it together.
Yeah, I know.
Early on, and to show, to see where he's gone it's remarkable, and what he's done and where he is today. It's crazy. That you would have thought, and the people that the top rung of the ladder up there would be Triple H and Shawn, and you feel what Bruce is there.
That's true too.
Last night, how many times that Bruce was in and out, and he's like top five of that whole company now, of running things, and what we see on television every week.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And
so, it just shows the perseverance, and these guys, when it comes down to it, and it's it's the same advice I give my children and other people, is that you're gonna get knocked down. The big test is, what are you going to do then? What are you going to do? Are you going to get up? And when you do get up, what are you going to do? And so that these are people that all along the way. And I mentioned that with the Undertaker, he had his adversity along the way. Maybe not as much as others, but he wouldn't be where he is today either, without having that perseverance, that drive, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. I know this is what I'm destined to do, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. So, these guys are not perfect human beings, and they made tons of mistakes along the way, but they just kept getting back up.
Of course.
So,
Hey, we all make mistakes.
Good lessons there. Yeah.
Yeah, we learned. Mr. Mooney has taught us a lot of things today.
Mm.
One of the historical things about Raw gets kind of thrown out there is finally we're getting superstar versus superstar, because for a long time on Superstars, Wrestling Challenge, Primetime, things like that, you would see, here comes Yokozuna versus some guy you never heard of, or here comes Max Moon versus some guy you never heard of. This Raw gives you the first feeling of like, you can feel however you want to feel about these wrestlers and where their star power is, but Yokozuna versus Coco Beware, that's superstar versus superstar. You have Shawn Michaels versus Max Moon, Intercontinental title, same thing, superstar, superstar. Undertaker versus Damien Demento, superstar. You do get the Steiner Brothers versus the Executioners, which is the most generic tag team name I've ever heard in my life. Los Guisadores is more original than that. But it's just interesting because after this first episode of Raw, if you watch enough of these, eventually you just go back to wrestler versus jobber, and then one marquee match. It's just, I don't know why they changed it. Maybe they realized we're giving away too much on television. But towards the end of this Raw, we get an advertising of a match of next week. It's going to be a steel cage match. It's not going to be a WWF wrestler, though. It's Woody Allen.
Oh, yeah.
In a steel cage match against, I believe, his ex-wife at the time.
Mia Farrow.
Yeah, Mia Farrow, over the custody of children. Vince loves this shit. If you watch these early Raws, he loves talking about current events. Why was he so deep into that type of talking points? Because I don't think anyone on Raw is like, oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and that was also part of the show too, is that he wanted it to have that feeling of live. And if we talk about events that are happening right now, then you're going, oh, wow, this is really going on. And so I think that was part of it. To add legitimacy to what we were doing, that it wasn't, this show that was just about, guys going into the ring, battling each other. It was it would be like trying to create that Monday Night Football kind of feel.
Yeah.
That you would, I think he kind of took a lesson, and I'm just using this as an example, but I remember, if people recall back in Monday Night Football, it was like Howard Cosell was like the first one to tell people that John Lennon had been shot. Got news tonight that John Lennon has, been shot down in front of the Dakota, or his apartment building in New York City. And so I think that they looked out for stuff like that. If there was something that they could bring to it, to give it that authenticity, to that timeliness, that was part of it. And the other part of it was Vince loved tasteless stuff. I mean, that was like Mia Farrow and Woody Allen, and the whole thing was kind of this incestual, that Woody Allen was messing with his kind of stepdaughter, or foster.
Did he get married to her?
Yeah, and it was, but Vince loved that. He loved, and I'm sure people know toilet humor. He really did. He loved to just get into it, and that also just added to that edginess, that rawness of what was happening out there in the world, and as I said, to make it seem timely, that this is all happening, and we're telling you right now. People are like, I just heard that. How does So wow.
How does he know that? Yeah, there's an episode of Raw where they have an O.J. Simpson line. They want you to call it and tell, do you think he's guilty or not guilty? And
right.
It's on Raw, by the way. Throughout the
night,
but
it had nothing. Right, but you were right in the point you're making. What does that have to do with anything? I'm sure that wrestling fans are kind of thinking like, okay, but but that was the purpose behind that he wanted it to be, timely. I don't think it was thinking that people are going to come here for their news. That wasn't it. And you mentioned
Mike Tyson impressions. Damn it!
Right, and you mentioned that the being able to see superstar against superstar matches, and we'd kind of done that with Saturday night's main event, but that was so scripted. It's just so tight that, and I was glad, because I always felt like, we've got to give people something, why, instead of asking them to pay all the time. If you want to see these guys, you got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt like, give them something. I always thought that, maybe like the Superstars show or the Challenge show, have one match that's decent. Not
randomly you'd get it.
Not just
it was like months and months of watching.
Not just this complete, smash match, promo, smash, the jobber match, guy destroys them. Then, see you next week. And so I like the fact that we were doing that. And you could see 4 or 5 of them. And it was a longer format so that it wasn't, Saturday night's main event was boom, boom, boom. And it was very heavy with, not that they didn't want to do the, the shtick that we did, but that was, always short. But, you could actually see these guys and the matches would be, maybe 4 or 5 minutes long sometimes, but you got to see a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. I just thought overall, a great idea. We're delivering, letting these people actually see these guys, 2 superstars in the ring that are at least recognizable names. So you've seen them and you know who they are. And giving these guys a chance too, on the superstar side, to get that attention, that national attention, because a lot of times they might not get it at a TV taping. So, So overall, I mean, it was just like win all the way.
Oh, 100% too. But like, I think I've heard the argument where something like this kind of ruins your magical matches, because now it's no longer just a pay-per-view. You're getting to see these things on TV, on Raw.
Yeah,
so,
right.
well, why would I pay for your SummerSlam or in your houses or whatever when I'm watching Superstar vs. Superstar? Because you're going through your magic matches very quickly, because you weekly are doing this. So suddenly you don't have Koko Beware versus Yokozuna could be a match at Survivor Series. Well, it's not going to be anymore because we just started on Raw. So like that might have been the beginning of, well, we have to deliver these giant matches, which I like what you said. Like, stop asking them to pay and give them something too.
Yeah,
and I think
something.
that's what happened here. And before we wrap this up though, you were outside all night. Are you ever going in to warm up? Because you can see your breath. You can see how cold it is. It's January in New York. It's not going to be, 60. It's going to be probably 22. Do you remember how cold you were? And did you get to stay warm at all that night?
Yeah, they had a lobby there so that I could go in there. Yeah. They wouldn't let Bobby in, but they let me in.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, it's good, but not him. So no, but so we were able to, and Bobby got to stay in for most of it. He would just come out and do the hits, and then he'd be back there getting ready to do the other thing. But yeah, I would hang out in the lobby there and then come out when we had the hits. But thank God, there was a floor manager basically out there with me, and
good,
because couldn't miss your hit. So I didn't want to stray anywhere. I was afraid to go to the bathroom, but it was a great night. I love doing other stuff too as we continued with the show, but I never forget like that last scene when Bobby finally gets to go in, and I kind of said like, yeah, it's fine. The security guy's kind of holding like, let him go, it's fine, and he, it's over. So it just overall, that was one of the best nights I ever had, because I didn't know it was coming. I felt it was, it was all genuine. I didn't, there was not, he's going to do this. He's going to come out. You're going to do this. It's just that it was like, he just can't get in. And Bobby was a master. His timing and everything was just so great. We didn't do rehearsal for that stuff. And I remember, I wish that initially I was thinking, God, I wish Vince would have let us at least block this out. But I understood later the purpose behind it. He wanted to see what would happen. He wanted it to be like this genuine man in the street kind of reaction thing and see where it goes. And that was, it was a single camera. And so it was, it was up to the camera guy to capture that. And I thought he did a great job. But that was what was all behind it. And I think overall, that first night, they pulled it off. It did exactly what they wanted it to do. It got a lot of attention, and here we are today, still watching Monday Night Raw.
I know,
uncooked,
uncensored. Uncooked, uncensored. It's interesting now though when it airs in different countries. They can air it on Netflix when it airs in a different country, Germany or France, whatever. But sometimes the Puppy Bowl or Wimbledon, like tennis games, would always preemptive Raw. It was so strange growing up. Like, wait, Raw's not on? Tennis is on?
Ball.
What the hell's this shit? It's Monday Night Raw, not watch it on Thursday, assholes. Screw you,
just
tennis.
made you want it more.
It did. I wanted more uncensored, uncooked, uncensored. But yeah, I felt bad for you watching it. I was like, damn, he looks chilly out there. But you got to work with Bobby Heenan all night. So what a magical evening for you, Mr.
Every
Mooney.
minute.
And I'm glad everyone enjoyed us talking about this right here. The first episode of Monday Night Raw, January 11th, 93. Go check it out. It's 45 minutes. Now, throughout the years, we've had hour-long episodes, 2 hour, 3 hour, 3 hour plus. But this 45, perfect. Wish we had the commercials, though, from 93. That would have been fun.
Yeah, they should have kept him in there. Yeah.
See Sprite pop up with like Shaquille O'Neal in them, and this Hogan doing his body spray, whatever. But all in all, thank you so much for being here on the Golden Hour Podcast with Sean Mooney. I'm Steve Fall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.